and welcome to Stories Untold, your weekly feel-good dose of positive and uplifting news. My name is Polio. Today we bring you yet another success story of a female entrepreneur. She goes by the name of Sebenzile Matsebula. She started her company a decade ago, supplying office equipment to businesses across Southern Africa. Her success story did not begin there. It actually gained momentum while working at the Union Building, a seat of power here in South Africa. This is a remarkable story of how Sebenzile did not let polio stand in her way of prosperity. Let's have a look.
My name is Sebenzile Matsebula, born in Barberton 62 years ago, and I'm a woman with a disability. When I was 10 months of age, my mother says, just as I was learning to toddle, as a toddler, learning to walk a bit, I had high fever and subsequently ended up in hospital. And when I was discharged from hospital, I had lower limb paralysis, and it was diagnosed as poliomyelitis, commonly known as polio.
Back in the 1950s, when Sebenzile was a baby, polio was a common but yet serious and contagious illness throughout the world. It affected young children and left many of them paralyzed or even dead.
Some children had upper respiratory paralysis, and many of those unfortunately didn't live because they couldn't breathe. I had lower limb paralysis, and as a result of many years of rehabilitation, going through Johannesburg General Hospital back then, and then Baragwanath, was able to be rehabilitated. My parents tell me an interesting story that when I came home and I was paralyzed, I was crawling, but crawling like a lizard. So because my lower limbs were paralyzed, so I would pull myself with my upper body, because I've always been very active and into everything. So even coming back home from hospital, I was like a little lizard, pulling myself using my upper body.
As the years passed and Sebenzile was growing older, there was a need for her to learn to walk upright. Since her legs were weakened by polio, they had to get a boost.
I grew up walking with the aid of calipers. They were made from hard iron so that they could carry the weight of the child. And every 6 months, we would have to travel from Barberton to Joburg Gen, because these things don't move. As I grow, they have to extend the length of the calipers and crutches. So basically, that's how I was rehabilitated to move from a crawling position to a walking position.
The calipers became Sebenzile's permanent leg accessory throughout her high school years. But the impracticalities of campus infrastructure during her varsity years meant the calipers finally had to go.
I told my parents that, these calipers are becoming impossible for me to go on with my life. And by then, I'm also into my late teens and now becoming very impressionable. And then I started hating those black, ugly leather shoes. So my parents brought me to consult with the doctors at Johannesburg Gen. And the doctor said, well, this child has actually developed a substantial amount of strength in her lower limbs. She can actually be able to move without the crutches, but she needs to have heavy, good quality shoes to be able to keep her balance. That was my saving grace. That was the end of me using calipers, but I still had to use the crutches for the rest of my life.
Years passed and Sebenzile finished varsity, started working and also began a family.
I had children, and I always say to people, this paralysis thing, God, I had lower leg paralysis. I always say it was very selective because somehow, even though I was paralyzed, but I ended up with two amazing, beautiful young men.
First came Mpendulo and then Tando. While their mother's physical disability was normal to them, it was not the case with other people. Her last-born son recalls how.
Growing up, it was the reactions from other children. You know, the stares that she used to get, and then the stares that we used to get. She used to get a lot of stares, especially with the crutches. But you know, if me or my brother would get, angry, she'd always used to remind us that, look, they don't understand, what's going on here. And it is our role, to help people understand and not to judge them on them not being able to understand what's going on. So for me, she used to keep on reassuring us that, there's nothing wrong. I'm just different. But in a way, I'm special. And, I've always taken that throughout my life, So what if people stare? I still love my mother.
When people were not staring at Sebenzile because of her physical disability, some were ignoring her completely. Her firstborn child, Mpendulo, recalls going out to restaurants to eat.
Her physical disability, in all honesty, played a big role because the world we live in is not one that is open and open-minded to people with disabilities. I always tell the story, and she always reminds me, when I was young, we'd be sitting at a restaurant, and I could be 10, 12 years old, and the waiter would come to me and ask, what does she want to eat? Or the waiter would come to me and give me the bill. You see that I'm 10, 12 years old. And those kind of things have always impacted myself and my psyche around, why do people act like this, and why are people not educated in this manner?
I actually found it very funny. Because for many, many years, when my boys were growing up, and you've seen them, they're quite big guys. So we're at a restaurant and I'm sitting there and I'm the mother. But because I'm a disabled person, I'm not recognized. So I don't even know what I want to order. I don't even know what I want to eat. My children would be asked.
But while Sebenzile could laugh off this public incident, her life was about to take a not-so-funny turn. Her condition as someone living with the effects of polio was about to get worse. Sebenzile Matsebula's condition as someone living with the effects of polio was about to get worse. In her 40s, she developed post-polio syndrome.
I had children, I gained weight, I was carrying the children on my back like every other African woman, but in the process, I was actually injuring my shoulders because your shoulders were never meant to be your legs. And then it transpired that I've actually damaged my upper shoulders because then I suddenly had a lot of pain in my later life. And I researched it and I discovered that there's actually a term called post-polio syndrome. So when you get to over 40, your body just says, you've been doing things that the normal body is not supposed to do. You get tired, you have a lot of pains in your joints and
Sebenzile has since had multiple surgeries to ease the pain.
I've had many. I'm still due for one more. So I sit here with an artificial shoulder. I never thought I would even agree to that. But these specialists in South Africa are amazing. And they explained to me that particularly the right shoulder is so damaged that even if I was to lie in bed and not move for 24 hours, the pain will still be there because all the tendons, everything is just gone, and now the ball and socket, there's nothing protecting it. It's just bone on bone. That's why I have a lot of pain. And they say there's new technology now. We just put an artificial shoulder, which they did, and miraculously, that pain was gone. gone, gone, gone. So I have no pain on this shoulder. I still live with a lot of pain. I think pain is my second name.
Now using a motorized wheelchair to get around, Sebenzile is also in the driving seat in the business world. She runs a successful multi-million rand business from the leafy suburbs of Johannesburg.
Currently working as an executive director for Motswako Office Solutions. Our primary mandate is leasing of office equipment, and that ranges from your small desktop scanner, printer, combo machines, they're part of the labor-saving device environment, to large-scale ones that are used for big productions.
Being a woman, black and living with a physical disability, Sebenzile faced the triple obstacle for success in corporate South Africa. The first hurdle being to access finance to start a new business.
The reality is this kind of business requires deep pockets. So when you're setting up the infrastructure itself, the office space, as you indicate, but then actually procuring the machines and then setting up the people to supply the business requires deep pockets. Unfortunately, I don't have, and I didn't have those kind of big pockets. So I looked around and was able to find people that I'd known in the past who do happen to have access to financiers.
The next challenge was to transform the IT business space and to provide an environment where all employees could grow. Joining the company later on to become partner and one of the 3 directors was Sello Lijala. This was his first stint as a business owner, but Sebenzile was there to hold his hand every step of the way.
Naturally, as a me, I fell under a wing. And that thing worked very well for me because obviously it was a transition for me from being an employee to becoming a business owner. There's certain things that I say. If I don't let enough, I'd say I'm advisor. When I'm more researching, more Kataro, Walaha Hanyana, Hukakamo Hanyani, and all basically take it to the deal. But one of the things that I like about her, to be honest with you, she's very frank. I hate Qualiqua, how it's on 20,000 years, how it's on 20,000 years, and what's by several Banyan and Luna, Nakata, by everything. How fi chance no he ya rona na ka tsa ba everything how tsa tseleng ka tsa however we don't find a space ya o hole.
We asked Sello whether he believes Sebenzile's physical disability hinders her job.
It's very difficult of me to think of it and then worry about the disability first because it doesn't come across. It's I mean, even now when you're asking me this question, I was like, no, it doesn't, because for me, I don't see her like that. Obviously, I recognize it, but I've never seen it playing a role in her doing a job, except obviously when we go to a building and a building is not friendly for her. But in terms of her doing her job, no, not at all. You can ask anybody that knows that. She hardly even speaks about it. And for me, it's like I'm saying, it's probably the first or the second time I heard somebody asking me about her disability. Otherwise, I don't even think of her like that. I honestly don't. So yeah, for me, I'm saying no.
And Sebenzile has been at the forefront of attempting to recruit other people living with disabilities to join her company. Unfortunately, she has observed a worrying trend in this regard.
I think that's a challenge that I've had personally because I believe and I know that there are people with disabilities who are qualified to work, but unfortunately in this technical space we've not been able to find or have any that will join the team. The other challenge is that it's a lot of the work, especially within the technical division, is very labor intensive, moving around, moving to the client, lifting machines and. So there's challenges there. And I also sort of just think in terms of the skilling, because unfortunately the reality is our past educational system, especially for people with disabilities, has been very compromised. And sadly, we still sit there where people with disabilities technically go to school, but the quality of education that is produced is very compromised. So I sit with that trauma day to day.
Next, Sebenzile takes us to the highest office in South Africa.
Many often share their worry about artificial intelligence taking their jobs away. Truth of the matter is that artificial intelligence does a lot of things faster and better than humans.
That machine didn't make itself, it was made by a human being. So which means us as human beings, we need to think more on the skills which we have.
I feel like ultimately it'll increase productivity and efficiency of things.
There's a lot of apprehension from the staff. The staff is really worried. What's going to happen? Am I going to lose my job? Is machines going to take over the world? The reality of the matter is, though, that the future is a blend of humans.
I don't like the sound of it too much. The fourth industrial,
On Network every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
Coletta Njohi for SABC News in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Leon Sanyange, SABC News, Entebbe, Uganda.
Chris Ochamringa, SABC News, Beni, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Sarah Kemani for SABC News in Accra, Ghana.
Phil Ihaza, SABC News, Abuja. Daniel Kijo, SABC, Dar es Salaam.
It's very good that we're having this visit to my first place of work. When I came to Pretoria at the Union Building, I was appointed during the administration of Tata Mandela. Thabo Mbeki was the deputy president. And I remember my first day and subsequent months, I used to have to walk up these steps because I didn't have permission to park inside. So first of all, it was parking my car here and then walking up with my handbag, which, as you can imagine, was very strenuous. But back in the day, I could still walk quite comfortably on my crutches. But these are long steps, as you can see. And over time, that also contributed to my shoulders deteriorating in terms of how they were.
Sebenzile was at the Union Buildings to head up South Africa's first ever unit to advocate disability rights right from the highest office in the land.
I had several functions. The main function was just to put the agenda of mainstreaming disability on government agenda. So with that office being in the presidency, it meant all policies that come out of the new administration were going to be inclusive of disability.
Despite the challenge of maneuvering around a national heritage site that took time to learn to accommodate people living with physical disabilities, Sebenzile still has fond memories of her time in the office of the presidency.
I have such beautiful memories of this place. One of them I remember at, I think it was the opening of Parliament. And Tata Madiba says, guard of honor, yenziwe abantu abadisabled. It has never happened in the history of this country. It was the first and last time. It hasn't happened since. And so it was my office that had to coordinate people with disabilities from all over the country to travel to Cape Town to actually form this guard of honor, so that as the president Mandela came down, greeted us and went into the opening of Parliament. Then afterwards, we had our own marquee to party, and he came to greet and be with us.
Others too have beautiful memories of Sebenzile, such as Dr. Kidiboni Siutlwadi, who is a close friend.
We are more than just friends. We work together now and then on projects, particularly in the disability sector. And that's basically where we met. We met through a mutual friend who was a business partner. And yeah, then everything started all there.
She admires how many people take to Sebenzile.
We work together in projects that are about mainstreaming of disability. I'll give you one example. There was a project in Mpumalanga where we traveled together, Sebe, and we had to go in there and look at the facilities, look at Bilingual Center, and see what can be done or what is it that's been done for them. And I'll tell you what, her being there, because Project ENA involved Batwa disability, it really helped. You know, people with disabilities can see that you know. And for instance, one of the hurdles that they had was Hokenamo Kumbi. Now, as you would know, public transport Yaruna is not friendly for disabled people. So, now that is not on. Lorna harukuki harkenamo transporting, you know. So looking at that, you know, those are things she was able to pick up to say, you know, but what about the respect, the dignity about what they also deserve, the dignity, like you and I, harkenamo transporting hand.
Carrying people living with physical disabilities seemed to be a recurring topic of concern during our time with Sebenzile. She recalls the time in 2013 when the former President Nelson Mandela's body lay in state at the Union buildings.
And I was really heartbroken when I saw some people being carried. So the shuttle would drop them here, people who are wheelchair users, and they had to be carried up those stairs so they could see him lie in state. I was really shocked because I thought to myself, you know, how did we miss this? You know, that particular arrangement should have been made that people with disabilities on wheelchairs should use that access.
We asked Sebenzile to rate the progress made in advancing the rights of people living with disabilities in South Africa today.
I really think, and this is my own analysis with absolutely no stats, just anecdotal data, I really believe we are at 6. Ngisho ngani ngoba uma ubheka ukuba abantu abazekile basese kude nokuthola izinto ezibafanele.
With the blessings of a beautiful family, career success and a lovely soul, has Sebenzile finally found true happiness?
I rather prefer to say I'm content because I'm really at a place in my life where I feel I've been really, really given and granted a lot.
Does that mean Sebenzile is ready to retire to a farm somewhere?
No. I am not ready to stop. I feel I just have so much to give back in terms of mentoring. I say to people out there, take ownership of your own life. Just recognize that you have to do it yourself. So reach out to people who can help you. There'll be others who shut doors in your face and say we don't want to have anything to do with you. Don't take it personally. Make sure you learn from that engagement with that person and move on to the next person. And there'll always be somebody who'll be willing to give you a hand and to teach you. Because for me, it's about learning. My motto in life is I'm always learning.
Thank you, Mama Sebe, for sharing your story with us. We wish you good health and, yes, contentment in your life. Remember, at home, you can search for us on the SABC YouTube channel using Stories Untold SABC. Alternatively, look for us online and tag us using the hashtag Stories Untold SABC. Thank you so much for watching today from myself and the rest of the Stories Untold team. Goodbye.